I told you I would be back and tell you what I thought of the Eggers Nosferatu. So I went to see it last night. I went to see it last night. It had Willem Dafoe in it. People aren't going to like what I'm about to say. And this is highly, highly subjective. I'm going to remind you of that, and I'm going to remind you that opinions are just that, opinions, and please don't tell me I'm wrong because it's my reaction, okay? So, having got that out of the way, I did not like it. I did not like it. I was bored. Not a great thing for a movie that's a horror movie, and I got bored. I went to like a 9:30 screening. I didn't get home till like 11:45, and if there hadn't been several jump scares in it to flood me with adrenaline, because I'm rather susceptible to jump scares, I would have fallen asleep in the cinema. Yeah, that's that is not the thing that you want to hear for your new Nosferatu. So why was I going to fall asleep in the cinema? I was interested to see this in the cinema because I'd seen the Murnau and the Herzog, and I was really interested in really the subtext of those films. What they said about things was particularly interesting. And I think if you were one of the people who watched all the way to the end of my video, you would have heard I said, this is either going to be something interesting that says something about our times, because both of the previous incarnations of this film do, or it's going to be a competently made vampire film. Well, I didn't say it was a bad film. I said it was a boring film. It's a competently made vampire film, and if it were any other iteration of a vampire, I wouldn't have really a problem with it. It's like, okay, it's that. But given the history of this film and the way that this film has been used, I have a problem with that, because by doing a remake, you're not just picking up any old vampire story. You are picking up a story that has this very particular history and very particular meanings, and they're very clear meanings. I mean, once you work out how to watch German Expressionist films, Nosferatu is very clear, and it's clearly responding to its time. Both times. Both films are very, very clear. I watched this and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is this about? What is this about? This is not the I have crossed oceans of time to be with you Dracula of Francis Ford Coppola. Not really. It is about repressed sexuality, but please, guys, not everybody is repressed sexually. That gets really, really dull. That's very, I'm sorry to say, it's really culturally specific. And not everyone sees the world through a puritanical lens. So that, it gets boring. So as far as I can say, it's very much about sexual repression. It's just like, okay, see, been there, done that, seen that. I did not like the vampire look. Like, it's like, oh goody, we've turned vampires into zombies. I don't like zombies. Zombies are boring. But also, part of the... I watched various different things, and Eggers talking about the fact that he wanted to drag the vampire back to his folkloric roots of the very corpse-like vampire, except that Nosferatu and most vampire films are part of a literary tradition, and that's quite different. And there's also a very long cinematic tradition of the vampire being less obviously dead. Because the vampire sits in an odd position when it comes to the monster. The vampire is dead, but the vampire is able to prey on the living because it doesn't look too obviously dead. It's able to pass for human. Dracula is able to pass for human once he has fed and grows young, because the Dracula wandering around in London does not look like the Dracula wandering around in Transylvania. It's kind of like he's wearing his house slippers vampire versus the I put on a nice suit to go wandering around here. It's a bit like that, which is a really I think the film was trying to be a reaction to things like Twilight, and it's like anyone who actually likes vampires sort of that's, as no one was thinking of that as vampires. So the very obviously very rotting corpse quality kind of undermines the idea of the vampire, in which is there. I mean, Max Schreck is very uncanny, but he's still a monster passing as human. Klaus Kinski is very uncanny, but he is still enough of a monster passing for human that you're not thinking this person is dead. You're thinking this person looks really weird. They look really weird. They're making me feel uncomfortable. But the idea that the vampire is so absolutely terrifying that Thomas Hutter is petrified is kind of it kind of undermines the actual threat. That the whole point, I think, of the vampire in that situation is I feel uncomfortable. I feel really this is not good. It's that way of humans turn on their, which is what the uncanny does brilliantly, is turns on the something's not right here, but there's also that weight of social convention that I'm not going to say this weird looking man is a monster, so it's a very fine line, and I think that by making him very corpse-like, it doesn't play that line so well. I think that a lot of the, I would say that if the vampire got crossed with a zombie, then Ellen got crossed with the Exorcist. I was kind of expecting Max von Sydow to jump out and, the power of Christ compels you at some point, because I think that undermined her character a lot, because Ellen makes those choices in the other films herself. She is a witness to the evil that has come into her town, and she makes a massive sacrifice to solve this out of it is a love sacrifice, but it's not a romantic love sacrifice. It is a basic human, a love of humanity, and this not wanting to see her fellow human beings suffer. So it is actually a much more altruistic sacrifice. The sort of strange telekinetic that works so much better when it's in 92's Dracula. I'm sorry. Also, you get Gary Oldman. Which also brings me to, if you're going to disguise your actor so heavily in makeup that even his face doesn't look like his face, so that why didn't you just hire a tall, thin, Slavic-looking actor with a big nose in his 50s with that gravelled-out voice? I'm sure there is an actor out there, or have we actually hit this point where Hollywood only has pretty boys left? Pretty faces left, and the big character actors are all entirely gone because why do that? Also, when did actors get so thin? And I know actors are always thin, but they looked really thin. They looked like, are you guys all right? Thin. I actually, including the men don't usually look that sort of thin. And whoa, what happened there? So ultimately, I found it really dark, really ugly. I did not need to see a man bite the head off a pigeon. I really did not need to see a man bite the head off a pigeon. And it was dull because it had taken, I think it was like, we'll just take the narrative. We'll strip out all the things that this can actually say, because look at the world around us. Could we not say something interesting using this story? And yet we didn't. We didn't say anything. We just turned it into a vampire film, and I think that's disappointing. Again, with Ellen's death. Interestingly, when you look at Ellen, and I think of the discussion between her and the Van Helsing type character in the Herzog, he is all rationality and logic and scientific method, and she's going by vibes. And if you read Nosferatu, the vampire, the Count Orlok, in the Herzog as the embodiment of evil, which I think helps negate the, oh, he's so lonely and sad. No, he's not lonely and sad. He is ostracized for a reason. He is like the man in the man trapped in the room in the Twilight Zone episode, in the monastery, where the monks say, we have the devil trapped in a room, and he's pleading and whining and, please let me out, they're so mean, it's one of those tricks that evil does. And that, I think, is part of the reason why I don't like the really ugly, revolting vampire, because part of the way that evil passes through the world is not by being obviously evil. If something is obviously evil, we go, ew, yuck, go away from me. But it doesn't. It's seductive. Most vampire stories do it by being, by using literal seduction, by being attractive. That's that sort of seduction. Whereas I think that the Nosferatu vampires, the Count Orloks, do it by being sort of harmless looking. There is something kind of, oh, I'm all alone in this castle and I'm so like the original Max Schreck looks like you could knock him over with a stiff breeze. Herzog's brings this pained, I am so lonely quality. And all the whole time it is, let me out of this prison. I am actually the devil trapped. And so when you let him out of the door, when you open the door, he gets out. And you unleash the devil in the world. And the problem with when you unleash that evil in the world, when you unleash the devil into the world, is that one of the insidious parts of evil is that it can use reason and science to justify what it is doing. How many reasonable people justified great evil throughout the 20th century and even into the 21st century, and all time really, based on it's logical, it's sensible, we can use rational argument for this. And Ellen is, no, this is evil. I can't tell you why. I just know this goes against my moral compass. I am using faith and my own sense of right and wrong to say this is evil, and I don't have time for you to rationalize it out or to try and prove it. And so she is a stronger character, I think, for actually saying, no, this is evil. This needs to be got rid of. And if nobody else will do it, I will do it. Whereas, and it's more humanistic because she's not doing it because there's a direct threat to an individual in her life. I mean, in Herzog, Jonathan's sort of sitting there, but in the original, there is no direct threat to her individually or anyone. No one has come and said, oh, I'll kill all these people. And I think that is also a weakness of the new film, because it's like, oh, okay, so you act now when someone threatens someone who you know. And that's not goodness, that's just selfishness. I mean, the really altruistic sacrifice of Ellen in the others is because she's doing this because it is for love of her community, for love of her world, to not want to see this death and destruction continue if she has the power to stop it. And so I think I never once felt bored watching the Murnau or the Herzog. I mean, the Herzog has the most glorious music in it. And the Murnau score the score that was on the Murnau is really, really engaging too. That was the other thing. It's just that drone music. The music isn't even, I was bored. I got bored watching this film. It didn't add anything to the story. It actually subtracted from the story that the other two had made. And it was just, as I had suspected, another vampire film. Another vampire film to add to the churn. And this was by far the longest of the films that I had looked at. This is the longest adaptation. So when I'm sort of thinking, there are huge stretches of silence in the Herzog where it's just filled with music, like long stretches of that, long shots. So this one managed to extend that out, because it didn't really add a lot of extra plot, but it stretched it out even further so that I'm like, come on. It's getting late. Like I said, if it didn't have the jump scares, I probably would have fallen asleep. So there you go. So yeah, that's what I thought of that. I was bored. I was genuinely bored watching this, which is never good, because if I love something, I would have been scrounging together money for a ticket to go see it again tonight. Because that's what I do if I love something. If I hated it, you would never hear me shut up about it. But really, this I'm never going to watch it again. I got bored watching it, and I'm only doing this because I promised it for you. So there you go. I'm going back to sleep. Auf Wiedersehen. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.